So there is a website called Mighty, and they have a BPD community, and they kind of asked 20 things that impact sex when it comes to borderline personality disorder, and I'm just gonna list them as well as talk to how that relates to me specifically, because we're all different. Everything's on a spectrum, so I am less borderline than I was when I was in my 20s, but I'm still more borderline than perhaps someone in their 60s or even someone younger than me, depending on where they are in their recovery. Because I have not been consistent in my recovery, because fuck, it's just hard. It's so much easier to just fall back to the maladaptive way of doing things. Just slide it. It's like a warm bath. A warm bath that's actually filled with toxic acid that'll eat away at you. But it just seems easier and more comfortable. So anyway, back to the 20 things that are often impacted or have to do with sex in the borderline. 1, wanting sex constantly. That would be me in a relationship. Sometimes if certain chemicals are involved, that's me in general. But usually if I'm not in a relationship, I really just don't want to have empty sex. I've had enough of that in my life. But in the past, it hasn't been the case. But I want it all the time. And my last relationship with a highly narcissistic person, he withheld sex a lot. I have never been denied sex in a relationship in my life. Like, I want it at least once a day. It's my way of connecting. It's my way of like gauging the relationship kind of thing. If we're not having sex, and it's that connection, it sometimes feels like the only way I can connect. And if we're not having that, I feel unattractive, or that there's somebody else, or there's something wrong with the relationship. And so I start to panic, kind of. And I don't like feeling that. I do not take sexual rejection well. And I know that's something I have to work on, because everyone has the right to say no. I just don't take it very well. So I don't, yeah. That's coming up next, or soon other ones with Hey, welcome to the mix up. Thanks for coming to get mixed up in the blender with the Blended Borderline, where I talk about cluster B personality disorders, namely borderline personality disorder, sometimes narcissistic personality disorder, just the general cluster B vibe, major depression, anxiety, agoraphobia, just mental health in general, spirituality, and addiction, just basically my life, and how these things interact with each other, and where I'm at, and where I know I can go, and where I am heading, and all that good stuff. Hope you want to come with me. Please like, subscribe, share my channel. If you get any value out of this, I really want to make this better and grow a community where we can support one another, educate one another, just be aware of one another. Because sometimes awareness and acknowledgement of our existence is all that we need sometimes. So today I want to talk about sex. Sex and the borderline. That sounds like Beauty and the Beast, right? It's got sex and the borderline. I have my little book here with all my notes. Not all my notes, plus it's like my journal. All that good stuff. Okay. It seems that, for me, I have a history of sexual trauma, starting in childhood, and then kind of progressing through to early adulthood. And I have been affected by that. My sex life has been affected. And apparently it's very common for borderlines to either be hypersexual or avoid sex. And I'm on both sides of that spectrum, depending on the year, the day, where I'm at, etc. If I'm in a relationship, I am constantly trying to get it on, because that's my way of connecting. If I'm not in a relationship and I'm just not feeling my hoe times, I kind of go into hibernation. I didn't realize that it was more common. It's more common than I thought. And apparently a lot of times promiscuity is common among people with borderline personality disorder. And the difference between promiscuity and just, casual sex is that promiscuity intentionally is intentionally having multiple partners, where casual sex is just, I'm feeling freaky, so I have sex, and then I just might as well sex again, or I might not, and all that good stuff. Where promiscuity is intentional seeking of multiple partners. The higher incidences of promiscuity with borderlines that abuse substances, which that has been primarily me, and I know that again has up and down depending on where my addiction is, or is, because some people want to party and some people don't, and I'm not necessarily in the party stage of my addiction. I'm much more in the maintenance stage, as I still am using, but I am working on a plan besides going to treatment for that. If I have to go to treatment, I will, just to get myself out of this kind of routine. But I'm really thinking that moving towards what I want and not away from what I don't want is a much better option, because I've been to treatment a bunch of times and here I am. So people with borderline tend to have higher body counts, and that's just because a lot of times we seek validation through that sex, and so that just lends to a higher body count. We also tend to have a higher instance of STDs or and such, because risky behavior, impulsive behavior, especially when substances are involved, and also just, it's a numbers game with sex. The more you gamble, the more likely you are to win. I guess when it comes to STIs, it's not necessarily considered winning. Never feeling sexual, and there is where I feel it, when I called it going into hibernation, and I did not know that was actually kind of common among people with borderline personality disorder. I just wouldn't feel like doing it at all. Like, people would talk about it, I would meet people or like talk to people online because I get lonely, but everyone wants to have sex, and I'm just like, I don't want to have sex. Like, that's not what I'm about right now. Some people get fucking mad. I actually had this one guy go, that's fine, because you're not my league anyway, or I'm not in your league anyway. Okay. I told him that it was like not over my ex, and people are crazy. Alternating between always and never. That again has to do with those two things, and that can be within a relationship depending on how the relationship is going, how long the relationship has lasted, if it's on again, off again. I have not used sex as a weapon or withheld sex on purpose. In fact, if I'm in a relationship and if somebody wants to have sex, I will have sex, because I just don't believe in saying no unless it's something horrible. Like, I'll just, because usually if I start it, if it starts getting, I'll get in the mood, and hopefully they do too. It's like, it's just something I do for my partner. Let's see. Using sex to fill emotional void and to get that validation, and that's definitely something that I've used in the past, and that's something I'm trying to avoid by not having that empty, casual sex with just whoever I find attractive at the moment, because I would feel bored with life, or I would just feel lonely, especially right after a breakup. And I would just want to feel alive, and like I was attractive, and that I mattered, and that, that I mattered, because I felt kind of invisible. When I'm not in a relationship, sometimes I do tend to feel invisible, which I actually don't mind, because I feel uncomfortable being seen. So Number 5, only being able to have casual sex. And this speaks to when I have picked partners, just, the hit and quit kind, on purpose, especially if I was going after younger guys. We're talking, early 20s when I'm in my late 30s. I was in my late 30s. Sorry. And that's because that's all it would ever be was casual sex. There's no way that I was going to develop a, deep relationship or deep emotional connection to someone half my age or close to half my age, because I did kind of think of them as children. And that kind of is messed up considering I was fucking them, but it is what it is. They weren't children, so there's that. Only having sex in relationships, and that's kind of where I'm at. And that's just because I want it to mean something, because sex does mean something. Even though I'm open to sharing, you know what I mean? Like, if people want to have an open relationship, as long as there's honesty, it's the sneaking around, that sneaky links and the fucking cheating that's not okay. I don't mind if my partner wanted to have sex with other people. I would just like to know about it. Heck, I might want to be there if that's okay. Now I feel a little embarrassed, but not really. Okay. So 7, losing interest quickly, and that would be during the act of sex. And this has happened to me before. And that would be like, oh, I'm into it, and also I'm not. I might actually be disgusted by it. I might be creeped out by it. I just, like, don't want to do it. And it's just, like, something triggers this, like, shutdown. Most of the time, I would still follow through with it if it was with an intimate partner, because I felt that was kind of just my issue to deal with. There was times I actually wrote something called self-imposed rape, and that was different. That was when I used to dissociate. Sometimes something would happen during sex, and I would just dissociate and start feeling as if I was being raped, and I wasn't being raped because it was a consensual act with someone I loved, and so I would continue going through the motions, as it were. No one ever seemed to notice, so apparently I was good at pretending. But yeah, it felt like I was being violated. But I logically knew that that was not the case, and I would kind of work my way through that, and I never held it against them because it was not their fault. I was just kind of held it against me, I guess, for not just stopping it and telling them about it, because if anyone is worth their salt, whatever that means, they would have been okay with stopping and would have been supportive. So intense rejection when a partner doesn't want to have sex or doesn't orgasm. That is a big one, like I was talking about before. Yeah, I think anyway. I'd like to think. And my partner not orgasming, that used to kind of offend me. Or I felt, like I was worthless, and that I just, like, what was I there for? I suck, and I suck at sex, and no one could love me, and it just downward spiral that would go. But then I realized, for one, percentage-wise, like, how often was I orgasming to them? And then in my lifetime, what's the percentage of my orgasms during sex? Not very big. And so I know that I didn't die, and I still enjoyed sex without having an orgasm. So when someone else tells me that it's okay that they didn't have an orgasm, probably because they were jacking off, all day or something, or, they just, having issues due to chemicals or sleep deprivation, that it was okay and no one was going to die. It wasn't like the end of the world if a guy doesn't come. And I never had an issue with a female coming, so there's that. Also, some of it was like, how's it feel? So, okay, being unfaithful. That has not been me historically. I mean, the 2 times in my life I have been unfaithful. Legacies of the trauma from when I was, earlier life, was feeling that I had no agency over my body, and that if someone felt sexual towards me, I must have done something because I'm inherently wrong, and I must have led them to believe that this was going to happen, so then I have to follow through, otherwise what am I? I can't be a liar. I don't want to be a liar, you know. And plus I have that, I don't want people to not like me. And there's that also that fear, because there's a safety issue with men, like predominantly they are stronger than me, so if I just do it, it's fawning. If I just do it, it will be over with faster than it would be if I said no. A no is a no, and if you have to continue to bother someone about it, it's coercion, and it's not consensual. That's it. It's not consensual. Would I like charge someone with rape? No. Consent is important. Okay. Unable to initiate sex. There's that. And that is partially because I have a hard time being sexual sometimes. That's gotten better as I've gotten older, thank God. But in general, being sexual felt wrong. There's shame there, because, you know, sex is dirty, and it's not really for me, it's for the other person, so I shouldn't be initiating it. That is for them. Plus, men are the initiators. I don't want to be seen as a slut, blah, 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 blah. But yeah. 11, feeling disgusted or uncomfortable about sex. And that is another thing about being sexualized, or just about sex in general. I can portray sexiness, like, you're like, oh, what's that, big boy? I would not say that, but big boy? I don't know, that's my problem. But if you mention my sexiness, or you sexualize me or objectify me, even though I'm making myself an object, and this can happen within a loving, committed relationship, and, well, I'm loving and committed at least, or something like that. Maybe sometimes I'm not. The point being is it's like established relationship. How's that? As long as I have agency over my body, and I can set boundaries and maintain them, that there was nothing wrong with sexuality, and that people seeing me as sexual isn't a problem, because just because they see me as sexual or objectify me in that moment does not make them see me as an object altogether, or only want me for sex, because those people you can tell, and that's just a thing, you know. I just avoid that. You know, sexiness also gets attention. So 12, dissociated during sex. That also would happen when I would kind of feel like I was being violated, even when I wasn't. Also when I was actually being violated. And that was my brain's protective mechanism kicking in, so that I wouldn't have to deal with being re-traumatized, or the first trauma, because I didn't know how to handle it. You know, so I just kind of went away. It just kind of feels like I'm not part of my body, and it's like almost like watching a movie, but through the eyes. It's like VR porn or virtual reality, anything. I guess we don't have to go straight to porn. I guess in this case, since we're talking about sex, it would be porn, but it's like virtual reality where I'm like watching it, but I look down and I'm a fucking white guy with a dick. I don't know. What's that about? So 13, being afraid of sex, and that, like I was just talking about, more so afraid of sexuality, but also just afraid of people only wanting sex. If I tend to jump into sex quickly, which is the next one, jumping into sexual relationships too quickly, because if I wait too long when I'm getting to know somebody, it feels like sex becomes this big thing. Because what if I really I'm vibing with you, like we're getting along really well, we have all these other things in common, you know, we're having a good time, and then we finally, like, the more we get, the closer to having sex, so that's the inevitable, you know, fucking destination, or, you know, one of the pit stops in a relationship or whatever. It's an important part to me for affection and whatnot. It becomes more important, whereas like so much more hinges on it, which my brain already thinks too much. That's one of the reasons I started doing drugs and drinking when I was younger, because then I didn't think so much, and then I could have sex without thinking, because my thoughts would ruin it. I'd become awkward. It's like I would never know what to do. It's like I could have sex 100 times, but then, you know, I'd start thinking, and it'd be like I'd never seen a dick before, or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. How do we start this? Like, who does what? And I would just freeze and not know what to do. And if they didn't take the lead, shit would get weird and awkward. Like, that has saved me, actually, from having sex with at least one person that I'm glad that I didn't have sex with, because I got awkward and they went, why are you being so awkward? Which, trigger, that shuts her down. This is so awkward, this ain't never gonna happen. And that's what happened, never. But, yeah, it becomes important. So it's like, what if we don't, like, aren't compatible sexually? Then fuck. And that has happened. I thought I was hanging out with a guy, we were friends, I really thought I liked him. I really thought we were getting along well, and then we had sex, and I was like, ugh, ugh. It was like getting humped by a fucking pathetic puppy. Like, it was just gross. Okay, so not feeling good enough, and that's whether physically, emotionally, whatever, just not feeling good enough to have a good time. This goes into the next one. Next two, well, feeling unworthy of pleasure, that would be like, I'm not good enough, like, this isn't for me, this is for you, I'm doing this for you, even though it's for me, but like the actual pleasure part is for you. And the giving and not receiving sexually, that used to happen. I really did not like guys going down on me, or anyone going down on me. Well, women really didn't do it, because I was like the man with women. I was the dominant one, I was always the giver, because that's just where I felt most comfortable. And I still, to this day, if I'm with a woman, I'm going to be the more dominant one, as I've yet to be dominated by a woman. Well, but, you know, like, I've met dudes off the internet just to, you know, like, because I just wanted to do it, because I like to do it, and that's all I wanted. And then I just, like, bye, and that was probably like their dream come true for a lot of them, because that's all they wanted anyway. And yes, that was unfulfilling over the long haul, and I don't engage in that activities anymore like that, because it is empty, and, you know, in the end just makes me feel sad because I'm all alone and giving it away, not getting anything in return. Desiring rough sex, that's definitely been most of the time the thing. I've never really gotten into, like, love making, I guess. Feeling deeply insecure during sex, that usually doesn't happen with me. I have about my body in the past. Like, the first time I had sex, I admitted something to the guy, an insecurity, which then was used against me and made fun of in front of a bunch of people. Same thing with a different guy I made out with. Made fun of me in front of everybody. It was ridiculous. Like, so I learned, besides just from growing up, like, familially, that there was not safety in sharing insecurities or being insecure. All of my earliest sexual adventures as a youth also involved the unsafety of sharing insecurities. So I don't usually share those, and usually I can just plow through it and just not think about it. And again, that has to do with chemicals, and just being like, fuck it, like, you're already this far, you know, what do I have to be insecure about? I'm not insecure about my fucking, you know, what's it called, techniques. I'm confident in that shit. Like, I know I can lay it down, and I can, you know, throw out the shit like it's nobody's business, and I can, you know, pet a cat, you know, I can tame a kitty, all that good stuff. Like, I am not insecure about anything I do. And about, as far as my body, that's gotten better, because if you're already that far, like, it's not like anyone's being fooled that I'm not fat before I take my clothes off. Like, you know what you're getting into, basically. I don't wear a bunch of Spanx, and I don't, like, do crazy things to make you think that I'm, you know, way less than I do. So if you're already that far and you don't like it, then fuck you. You're not for me anyway, basically. But I haven't had an issue, to be honest. And 20 is being especially attuned to a partner in bed. And I think this is not a negative, but I think it is something that is a superpower of the BPD, of the borderline, is that we tend to be in tune with our partners anyway, in and outside the bedroom, and we tend to be attentive or aware of our surroundings and the people's energies and the people just that we are surrounded by. And this is a developed trauma response, but it's safety. If I can anticipate your needs before you know you need them, like, for one, I guarantee, or not guarantee, but like, I am securing a spot in your life because you will feel like you need me, or you'll feel that I'm valuable. Also, you know, that can head off any negative, bad times if I can guess what you need before you need it, kind of a thing. Even though that doesn't always work, because some people won't have bad times no matter what. They will change it up just so they can have bad times. But in bed, like, being able to kind of read people's body language and their sounds and all that good stuff helps us be better lovers, which then, you know, the point is then hopefully we're getting better love in. And so I think that number 20 is a kind of a superpower. And I am no doubt in, you know, I hold that power. I own that power. But yeah, so that is basically how my borderline personality or borderline personality disorder can affect sex. At some point, we'll talk about why I have these trauma responses and why I am affected the way I am. But for now, let's keep it at that. And so I'm glad that you were here, and I love you unconditionally, regardless of where you are in life, who you are in life, and what you've done in life. And remember that legends never die, and we're all legends. So keep being legendary.